Monarchy is a political system in which supreme authority is vested in the monarch, an individual ruler who functions as head of state. It typically acts as a political administrative organization and as a social group of nobility known as court society. A monarchy is a form of government in which a person, the monarch, reigns as head of state for the rest of their life, or until abdication. The extent of the authority of the monarch may vary from restricted and largely symbolic, constitutional monarchy, to fully autocratic, absolute monarchy, and may have representational, executive, legislative, and judicial functions. The succession of monarchs has mostly been hereditary, often building dynasties. However, monarchies can also be elective and self-proclaimed. Aristocrats, though not inherent to monarchies, often function as the pool of persons from which the monarch is chosen, and to fill the constituting institutions, e.g. diet and court, giving many monarchies oligarchic elements. The political legitimacy of the inherited, elected, or proclaimed monarchy has most often been based on claims of representation of people and land through some form of relation, e.g. kinship, and divine right or other achieved status. Monarchs can carry various titles such as emperor, empress, king, and queen. Monarchies can form federations, personal unions, and realms with vassals through personal association with the monarch, which is a common reason for monarchs carrying several titles. Some countries have preserved titles such as kingdom while dispensing with an official serving monarch. Note the example of Francoist Spain from 1947 to 1975, or while relying on a long-term regency, as in the case of Hungary in the Horthy era from 1920 to 1944. Monarchies were the most common form of government until the 20th century, when republics replaced many monarchies, notably at the end of World War I. As of 2024, 43 sovereign nations in the world have a monarch, including 15 Commonwealth realms that share King Charles III as their head of state. Other than that, there is a range of subnational monarchical entities. Most of the modern monarchies are constitutional monarchies, retaining under a constitution unique legal and ceremonial roles for monarchs exercising limited or no political power, similar to heads of state in a parliamentary republic. A monarchy consists of distinct but interdependent institutions, a government and a state administration on the one hand, and a court and a variety of ceremonies on the other that provide for the social life of the members of the dynasty, their friends, and the associated elite. Monarchy thus entails not only a political administrative organization but also a court society, a term coined by the 20th century German-born sociologist Norbert Elias to designate various groups of nobility, like the British nobility, that are linked to the monarchical dynasty, or royal house, as with the House of Windsor, through a web of personal bonds. All such bonds are evident in symbolic and ceremonial proprieties. Monarchies are associated with hereditary reign, in which monarchs reign for life and the responsibilities and power of the position pass to their child or another member of their family when they die. Most monarchs, both historically and in the modern day, have been born and brought up within a royal family, the center of the royal household and court. Growing up in a royal family, called a dynasty when it continues for several generations, future monarchs are often trained for their expected future responsibilities as monarch. Different systems of hereditary succession have been used, such as proximity of blood, primogeniture, and agnatic seniority, Salic law. While most monarchs in history have been male, many female monarchs also have reigned. The term queen regnant refers to a ruling monarch, while queen consort refers to the wife of a reigning king. Rule may be hereditary in practice without being considered a monarchy. There have been some family dictatorships, and also political families, in many democracies. The principal advantage of hereditary monarchy is the immediate continuity of leadership, as evidenced in the classic phrase "the king is dead." Long live the king. Some monarchies are not hereditary. In an elective monarchy, monarchs are elected or appointed by some body, an electoral college, for life or a defined period. 4 elective monarchies exist today. Cambodia, Malaysia, and the United Arab Emirates are 20th century creations, while one, the papacy, is ancient. A self-proclaimed monarchy is established when a person claims the monarchy without any historical ties to a previous dynasty. There are examples of republican leaders who have proclaimed themselves monarchs. Napoleon I of France declared himself Emperor of the French and ruled the First French Empire after having held the title of First Consul of the French Republic for 5 years from his seizing power in the coup of 18 Brumaire. President Jean-Bedel Bokassa of the Central African Republic declared himself Emperor of the Central African Empire in 1976. Yuan Shikai, the first formal president of the Republic of China, crowned himself Emperor of the short-lived Empire of China a few years after the Republic of China was founded. Powers of the monarch. In an absolute monarchy, the monarch rules as an autocrat, with absolute power over the state and government, for example, the right to rule by decree, promulgate laws, and impose punishments. In a constitutional monarchy, the monarch's power is subject to a constitution. In most current constitutional monarchies, the monarch is mainly a ceremonial figurehead symbol of national unity and state continuity. Although nominally sovereign, the electorate, through the legislature, exercises political sovereignty. Constitutional monarchs' political power is limited. Typical monarchical powers include granting pardons, granting honors, and reserve powers, e.g. to dismiss the prime minister, refuse to dissolve parliament, or veto legislation, withhold royal assent. They often also have privileges of inviolability and sovereign immunity. A monarch's powers and influence will depend on tradition, precedent, popular opinion, and law. Semi-constitutional monarchies exhibit fewer parliamentary powers or simply monarchs with more authority. The term parliamentary monarchy may be used to differentiate from semi-constitutional monarchies. Monarchical reign has often been linked with military authority. In the late Roman Empire, the Praetorian Guard several times deposed Roman emperors and installed new emperors. Similarly, in the Abbasid Caliphate, the ghilmans, slave soldiers, deposed caliphs once they became prominent, allowing new ones to come to power. The Hellenistic kings of Macedon and of Epirus were elected by the army, which was similar in composition to the ecclesia of democracies, the council of all free citizens. Military service was often linked with citizenship among the male members of the royal house. The military has dominated the monarch in modern Thailand and in medieval Japan, where a hereditary military chief, the shogun, was the de facto ruler, although the Japanese emperor nominally reigned. In fascist Italy, the Savoy monarchy under King Victor Emmanuel III coexisted with the fascist single-party rule of Benito Mussolini. Romania under the Iron Guard and Greece during the first months of the colonel's regime were similar. Spain under Francisco Franco was officially a monarchy, although there was no monarch on the throne. Upon his death, Franco was succeeded as head of state by the Bourbon heir, Juan Carlos I, and Spain became a democracy with the king as a figurehead constitutional monarch. Most monarchies only have a single person acting as monarch at any given time, although two monarchs have ruled simultaneously in some countries, a situation known as diarchy. Historically, this was the case in the ancient Greek city-state of Sparta. There are examples of joint sovereignty of spouses, parent and child or other relatives, such as William III and Mary II in the kingdoms of England and Scotland, Tsars Peter I and Ivan V of Russia, and Charles I and Joanna of Castile. Andorra currently is the world's only constitutional diarchy, a co-principality. Located in the Pyrenees between Spain and France, it has two co-princes, the Bishop of Urgell in Spain, a prince-bishop, and the President of France, derived ex officio from the French kings, who themselves inherited the title from the Counts of Foix. It is the only case in which an independent country's monarch is democratically elected by the citizens of another country. In a personal union, separate independent states share the same person as monarch, but each realm retains separate laws and government. The 15 separate Commonwealth realms are sometimes described as being in a personal union with King Charles III as monarch. However, they can also be described as being in a shared monarchy. A regent may rule when the monarch is a minor, absent, or debilitated. A pretender is a claimant to an abolished throne or a throne already occupied by somebody else. Abdication is the act of formally giving up one's monarchical power and status. Monarchs may mark the ceremonial beginning of their reigns with a coronation or enthronement. Role of monarch. Monarchy, especially absolute monarchy, is sometimes linked to religious aspects. Many monarchs once claimed the right to rule by the will of a deity, divine right of kings, mandate of heaven, or a special connection to a deity, sacred king, or even purported to be divine kings, or incarnations of deities themselves, imperial cult. Many European monarchs have been styled fide defensor, defender of the faith. Some hold official positions relating to the state religion or established church. In the Western political tradition, a morally based, balanced monarchy was stressed as the ideal form of government, and little attention was paid to modern-day ideals of egalitarian democracy, e.g. St. Thomas Aquinas unapologetically declared, tyranny is wont to occur not less but more frequently on the basis of polyarchy rule by many, i.e. oligarchy or democracy than on the basis of monarchy. On kingship. However, Thomas Aquinas also stated that the ideal monarchical system would also have at lower levels of government both an aristocracy and elements of democracy in order to create a balance of power. The monarch would also be subject to both natural and divine law, and to the church in matters of religion. In Dante Alighieri's De Monarchia, a spiritualist, imperial Catholic monarchy is strongly promoted according to a Ghibelline worldview in which the royal religion of Melchizedek is emphasized against the priestly claims of the rival papal ideology. In Saudi Arabia, the king is a head of state who is both the absolute monarch of the country and the custodian of the two holy mosques of Islam. The roles of monarchs can overlap with other monarchies through personal union or dynastic union, with maybe becoming institutional real union and possibly a larger federal, composite or unitary monarchy, realm and state. Monarchs can have various titles. Common European titles of monarchs, in that hierarchical order of nobility, are emperor or empress, from Latin, imperator or imperatrix, king or queen, grand duke or grand duchess, prince or princess, duke or duchess. Some early modern European titles, especially in German states, included Elector, German, Kurfürst, Prince-Elector, literally electing prince, Margrave, German, Markgrave, equivalent to the French title Marquis, literally Count of the Borderland, and Burgrave, German, Burggrave, literally Count of the Castle. Lesser titles include Count and Princely Count. Slavic titles include knyaz and tsar, or tsaritsa, a word derived from the Roman imperial title Caesar. In the Muslim world, titles of monarchs include caliph, successor to the Islamic prophet Muhammad and a leader of the entire Muslim community, padishah, emperor, sultan or sultana, shahanshah, emperor, shah, malik, king, or malika, queen, amir, commander, prince or amira, princess, sheikh or sheikha, imam, used in Oman. East Asian titles of monarchs include Huangdi, emperor, or Nuhuang, empress regnant, Tianzi, son of heaven, Tenno, emperor, or Jose Tenno, empress regnant, Wang, king, or Yuang, queen regnant, Wangzhe, emperor, or Yoj, empress regnant. South Asian and Southeast Asian titles included Maharaja, High King, or Maharani, High Queen, Raja, King, and Rana, King, or Rani, Queen, and Ratu, Southeast Asian Queen. Historically, Mongolic and Turkic monarchs have used the title Khan and Kagan, Emperor, or Khatan and Khanum. Ancient Egyptian monarchs have used the title Pharaoh for men and women. In Ethiopian Empire, monarchs used title Engus Nagast, King of Kings, or Ngsta with Diaresis Nagast, Queen of Kings. Many monarchs are addressed with particular styles or manners of address, like Majesty, Royal Highness, by the grace of God, Amir al-Mu'minin, leader of the faithful, Hunkari Kandani Ali Osman, sovereign of the sublime house of Osman, Dulai Yang Mahamulia Seri Paduka Bajinda, Majesty, Jeonha, majesty, tenohika, literally His Majesty the Heavenly Sovereign, bixia, bottom of the steps. Sometimes titles are used to express claims to territories that are not held in fact, for example, English claims to the French throne, or titles not recognized, anti-popes. Also, after a monarchy is deposed, often former monarchs and their descendants are given alternative titles. The King of Portugal was given the hereditary title Duke of Braganza. A non-sovereign monarchy is one where the monarch is subject to a temporal authority higher than their own. Some are dependent on other powers, see vassals, suzerainty, puppet state, hegemony. In the British colonial era, indirect rule under a paramount power existed, such as the princely states under the British Raj. In Botswana, South Africa, Ghana, and Uganda, the ancient kingdoms and chiefdoms that were met by the colonialists when they first arrived on the continent are now constitutionally protected as regional or sectional entities. Furthermore, in Nigeria, though the hundreds of sub-regional polities that exist there are not provided for in the current constitution, they are nevertheless legally recognized aspects of the structure of governance that operates in the nation. For example, the Yoruba city-state of Akure in southwestern Nigeria is something of an elective monarchy. Its reigning Obadiji has to be chosen by an electoral college of nobles from amongst a finite collection of royal princes of the realm upon the death or removal of an incumbent. In addition to these 5 countries, non-sovereign monarchies of varied sizes and complexities exist all over the rest of the continent of Africa. Statehood. Monarchies predate polities like nation-states and even territorial states. A nation or constitution is not necessary in a monarchy since a person, the monarch, binds the separate territories and political legitimacy, e.g. in personal union, together. Monarchies, though, have applied state symbols like insignia or abstracts like the concept of the crown to create a state identity, which is to be carried and occupied by the monarch, but represents the monarchy even in absence and succession of the monarch. Nevertheless, monarchies can also be bound to territories, example the King of Norway, and peoples, example the King of the Belgians. The monarchies of the Kingdom of Bahrain, the Brunei Darussalam, the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, the State of Kuwait, Malaysia, the Kingdom of Morocco, the Sultanate of Oman, the State of Qatar, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates generally retain far more powers than their European or Commonwealth counterparts. Brunei Darussalam, Oman, and Saudi Arabia remain absolute monarchies. Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates are classified as mixed, meaning there are representative bodies of some kind, but the monarch retains most of his powers. Jordan, Malaysia, and Morocco are constitutional monarchies, but their monarchs still retain more substantial powers than European equivalents. 4 monarchies do not fit into any of the above groups by virtue of geography or class of monarchy: the Kingdom of Tonga in Polynesia, the Kingdom of Eswatini and the Kingdom of Lesotho in Africa, and the Vatican City-State in Europe. Of these, Lesotho and Tonga are constitutional monarchies, while Eswatini and the Vatican City are absolute monarchies. Eswatini is unique among these monarchies, often being considered a diarchy. The king, or Ngwenyama, rules alongside his mother, the Ndlovukati, as dual heads of state. This was originally intended to provide a check on political power. The Ngwenyama, however, is considered the administrative head of state, while the Ndlovukati is considered the spiritual and national head of state, a position which more or less has become symbolic in recent years. The Pope is the absolute monarch of the Vatican City-State, a separate entity from the Holy See, by virtue of his position as head of the Roman Catholic Church and Bishop of Rome. He is an elected rather than a hereditary ruler, and does not have to be a citizen of the territory prior to his election by the cardinals. The Order of Malta describes itself as a sovereign subject based on its unique history and unusual present circumstances, but its exact status in international law is a subject of debate. In Samoa, the position of head of state is described in Part 3 of the 1960 Samoan Constitution. At the time the Constitution was adopted, it was anticipated that future heads of state would be chosen from among the four Tama-Aga royal paramount chiefs. However, this is not required by the constitution, and, for this reason, Samoa can be considered a republic rather than a constitutional monarchy. However, each member of the Samoan parliament, except for the 2 seats reserved for non-Samoans, must be a matai, a member of the hereditary political system known as the Famatai. The ruling Kim family in North Korea, Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il and Kim Jong-un, has been described as a de facto absolute monarchy or a hereditary dictatorship. In 2013, Clause 2 of Article 10 of the new edited 10 Fundamental Principles of the Korean Workers' Party states that the party and revolution must be carried eternally by the Baekdu, Kim's, bloodline. This though does not mean it is a de jure absolute monarchy, as the country's official name is the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. The Al-Assad family, which ruled Syria from 1971 to 2024, was similarly categorized as such. Thank you for watching this video.